I used to think about mental health. People with depression and anxiety were just making up excuses to be miserable, and I was so wrong. I was so wrong because it was.
I always think that I'm not
honestly, if not for
very strong thoughts.
Yeah, hi, I'm Phim Summer. I'm a singer-songwriter for most of my life. I'm pretty much healthy, but I do have a history of depression and anxiety.
My name is Devika. I'm 27 this year. I am a survivor of childhood sexual abuse.
My counsellor brought me to the A&E because of my very strong thoughts of ending my life.
You know, politics at work and getting along with different personalities. So as a result of that, I went through depression as well.
So for me, my mental health journey was where I always think that I'm not good enough or I'm not doing enough with my time.
I was trying to draft a document, and I remember staring at the same paragraph for a couple of hours and I couldn't focus. And I remember I was trying to fight back tears. My parents didn't know anything because what they saw is A-star student. This one time I remember one of my friends, she came to me and said, "Yasmin, what's wrong? Why are you crying? What's wrong?" I say, "I don't know. I don't know."
And that period was very long and very dark. And honestly, if not for people around me, if not for certain factors, there's no way, there's not a snowball chance in hell, right, that I'll be here today.
What made me seek treatment? It was my friend. He felt that something is off for me, and I need to seek help from a professional. I was being very arrogant. I'm like, who do you think you are? I'm Phim Summer, you know? How dare you say that I'm mad?
There was this opportunity to partake in a pageant. I went for it and I had my first ever anxiety attack. It was such a debilitating experience that I lost a sense of confidence. Whatever I worked so hard to build up to, I felt like I lost it all in that moment, and it was terrifying. And at this point, I think my family, we had already understood more about mental health, and my family had a history of mental health. So when they saw me struggling with my anxiety, they encouraged me to go see a therapist.
I could not take the first step because I couldn't control my mind. I remember the first time a suicidal thought came in, there were two things that scared me. Number one was that I was capable of such a thought, and the second thing is that I couldn't control it. And the second thing actually scared the hell out of me. It scared me way more than the first. So I begged for help. The only thing I could do, right, was beg my parents. I remember the exact line I said, "Mom, Dad, you need to bring me IMH now. Right? If not, like, I'm gonna die." I just lost my emotions completely. Like, the only thing worse than feeling fear is not being able to feel anything at all.
So I had a suspicion that it could be depression. I got so bad that I eventually saw a counsellor. I couldn't accept the fact that maybe I had a mental health condition. So I decided to maybe seek help, ask a couple of friends for their advice, and one of them advised me to see the counsellor. And there were good experiences and bad experiences through it all. But I guess the good thing was counselling gave me a space to really talk about the difficulties I faced or the challenges I faced, and talk about my emotions, which I think in our Asian society is not something we talk about. And even at home with my parents, it's not something we talk about, you know.
All my problems, I'm insecure, I don't feel I'm good enough, you know, that kind of thing. And then I branch it out and I just give my therapist, say, "Hey, solve my problem." Of course, it didn't happen that way, but even though I had everything like drawn out very clearly, the therapist was able to uncover things that was like unbeknownst to me also. I thought the whole process was quite healing, was quite illuminating for me, and it really helped me just provide a different perspective. Sometimes it's like your friend, maybe paiseh to like say certain things to you, but with a therapist, sometimes they can just say stuff that like, "Oh, I never thought about it that way." Yeah, and it's not even in like criticizing you, it's just very factual.
I just remember over-explaining everything. I was feeling anxious because of this, because of that. I could articulate exactly what was going through my mind emotionally, but my therapist said that I wasn't feeling any of it. So she just said, "You're very aware of what's going on, but you're not feeling it. You're just looking at all your feelings from the outside." So she asked me why you always have to be so perfect all the time. And I realized that it's the only way that I could justify any reason to be alive. A lot of the times we think that going for therapy is like, oh, you go and you speak and then you feel better, right? But my very first therapy session actually made me feel worse. but for the better?
Actually, for me, my therapy was only like about 3 months. I think it's quite important to note that your comfort level with the therapist, that's very important. So I went to this person. So after 3 sessions with her, she passed me on to her colleague, who turned out to be a better fit for me.
Because I see progress after the second and third session, I became more honest with myself in that I allowed myself to be vulnerable. So I broke down, I went back to the past, 10 years ago, whatever, all the drama and all the violence, whatever. And yeah, I allowed myself to cry, I allowed myself to, just let it out to the doctor.
Sometimes when I work too much or I get too intense into the work that I'm doing, I do go into a bit of hypomania. So that's when I actually get a bit more activated. I run on adrenaline and I tend to be quite hyper as well. I'm very now mindful of a work-life balance and also making time to make sure that I don't go through burnouts again.
So there are 2 different types of support groups that I am involved in. When you attend a support group, people in that room all come from extremely diverse backgrounds. You have CEOs, you have people caring for parents with dementia, you have parents caring for their adult children with schizophrenia. It's a very humbling experience, and it's also, in a way, comforting, because we found each other and we realized that we're not alone. So that was a very, very empowering experience for me.
And I think what really helped me is finding the right group of people that you are close to who really understand you, just give you that space. So peer support specialists are people with lived recovery experience of mental health conditions. It's sort of like people who have really ran that marathon and now they're coming back to cheer the other people who are still running that race.
I had very close support from my family. They didn't understand fully, but they empathized. And I also had 1 or 2 close friends that stuck by me. So that social support helped.
One of the things that I think is most annoying is when people say being suicidal or having suicidal ideations. Like people who are cowards would do these things.
They just say like, oh, 加油. Even if you say it for courtesy, then just don't say it at all. It just makes it worse. I wish they said something more constructive. I think you should maybe talk to me about it.
We tend to push aside or brush away or downplay our emotions, and this really invalidates what we're going through. And there were a couple of friends that just told me to man up, just don't think so much, it's all in your head. Hearing that only made me feel more guilty, made me feel worse, because it felt like I'm such a useless person, I can't even function normally and get about my daily activities.
The millennials and younger people these days, they're actually very much more open in having such conversations. It's just something like an illness, like how we would get a flu or diabetes. I've seen this shift of the conversation in the past, maybe 10 years ago, versus now when we're actually more open to saying that, hey, yeah, I went through a spell of depression.
I find that recognizing your feelings is really very, very important. So I started the blog last year, January 1st, 2020. Why I wanted to do the blog is because last time I read other people's very honest blog, and when I read their articles, I felt this like validation. So I felt like I wanted to do it so that whoever is in my shoes, they can also know that they're not alone and that somebody else is also going through, and maybe they will read it and they will also feel better or learn something even. It's very heartening to see people like our president, Halimah Yacob, leading the conversation and championing the cause. So it's really comforting and encouraging to see so many different platforms and sectors that are more open about talking, about the importance of mental health.
I feel like we need to normalize things like empathy. We need to normalize things like being compassionate, having emotional articulation, like knowing how to talk about your emotions is so important. And I think most people struggle with that. They don't know what they're feeling, why they're feeling that.
So even when I suspected that it was depression, I always had doubts, is this serious enough to seek help? Is this something that I can overcome by myself? Also a lot of questions about, if I get diagnosed, how would this affect my future? How would this affect my employment? But it's really a pity that it had to come to the point where I was just about to end my life, that it took that moment to help me realize that I really had to do something about the challenges I was going through.
Don't be afraid of like the idea of going to a therapist, because I still feel that a lot of people are afraid to go out to a therapist and tell their friends or like family about it. It's like, I don't want it to be known to anyone, but really it's very common. It's nothing to be afraid of, and you should just go for it, because you'll heal faster if the more that you step up and seek treatment.
Yeah, I just want them to know that you're not alone. You know, there's a whole tribe out there with you. There are other people who are also sometimes just going through some challenges, and sometimes it may seem like you're alone, but you're really not alone. Reach out and get help early. Find people who are willing to listen to you, who are willing to empathize with you, and get professional help if needed as well early, so that hopefully your recovery journey will be smoother. Yeah.